piece of paper. Write it down so that when you're getting on the show that you take as little time as possible so that we can take as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourself and then respect others, because we'll not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. You can also follow our live video stream on our YouTube channel and Vaughan Radio, on our Facebook page and Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again. Tonight, Conrad Nile Library, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to all our listeners at home and abroad, to the very special people of Nevis. I say a special good evening. How about my friends in Toronto and Connecticut, who's always in tune to this program? Webbo, as usual, I'm always ready to have a conversation about the issues affecting the people in general, and in particular the people of Nevis. And as I meet the very many people on the road, and everyone have something to say because they know me, always a feature on this program. And I've of course been given many tasks at times, and in most cases I do not undertake such tasks. I mostly encourage people to call in, but I frequently hear, oh, they know my voice. I don't know who they're talking about. But I would always encourage people to join the program by a telephone call or whatever means, and get involved in these conversations, which I think would impact our little island going forward. Webbo, once again, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
And so, I want to thank everybody for still sticking with us in my absence and all that, and those who know the cause, or part of the cause that I was not in, and send their greetings and stuff like that. We got you, and we're okay. Okay, so now what we get?
Well, Webbo, they had a recent Federal Assembly, which I think some significant undertaking was made, especially, did I see or heard the title of the bill, the entity bill? Anyway, that bill that gave Nevis, once again, legal authority, I thought that was a landmark. And I congratulate, I suppose, the relationship between the Premier of Nevis and Prime Minister, and everyone, I suppose, who are involved in this conversation and join of this legislation. And because I think it would have been something not good for Nevis if it was to be said that the island administration cannot be sued or cannot sue. So I'm absolutely happy for that. It was something that was very much on my mind, knowing that the island administration had such authority and did that before. And to me, it was such a blunder for the island administration going forward to engage with anyone, individual or company, coming forward to do business in Nevis, and could not sue them for wrongdoing, or cannot be sued even if they themselves did not live up to contractual arrangement, Webbo. And I think even going forward in our quest to develop our little island, and the constant mention of foreign investors, I think this bill have done wonders for the island administration, and I'm so happy that we maintain that degree of independence. I'm not sure if the members of the public was astute to the bill, but I think it had become something that people was willing to play with in a political way, and I thought it was very serious, because it doesn't matter which political party is in power in Nevis. The lack or the inability to be sued or sue was something that would have affected us all here on Ireland, doesn't matter what political party we're in. So I'm very happy that in particular was done, and I say congrats to those who actually made it happen.
You know, what I find is interesting in that particular situation is that from independence there was a practice that Nevis was undertaking certain contracts. I say certain because in some instances we learned that they used to have to get the blessings of the federal government. And certainly in this particular case that was brought forth and which caused the subsequent action, it wasn't anything that based on practice had required the blessings of the federal government. But it just goes to show what happens with interpretation of something. Because this thing, it was the same thing in the same way it was always written in the Constitution. And in fact, one of the persons who at some point in time was the Attorney General for St. Kitts and Nevis was also a party to the framing of that particular constitution. And in my view and in my layman view of the law, should be interpreted trying to find out or determine the spirit and the intent of the lawmakers or the framers. And that is why the Parliament was able to go back and now make it clear what the intent as far as the legislating is concerned of that particular function. And the other thing I thought was interesting is who voted, meaning who were present. Because there are certain things that is always interesting to see where everybody stands on certain issues. And so I find that was interesting in as well. Also, it was a very significant step that was taken. And then you begin to ask a question that a lot of the significant things that we do with a lot of rhetoric with, but never happen, you begin to wonder whether we really do want them to happen. I always say, people will do exactly what they want to do. If they don't want to do it, they'll find a good reason or bluff or excuse why not. So I just found that was interesting, and the fact that it's been clarified, and to see what else may take the same route in terms of getting what we claim to be hindrances.
Yes, Webbo. Sometimes it's about interpretation, and sometimes it's about the intention of those who are hired to interpret. Interpretation has different rules, and depends on what legal system you find yourself under. It has a different approach, I suppose. But here in the Federation, we constantly find ourselves having to hear about the Constitution, new things and different things that they sometimes think the layman does not understand. In this particular instance, I don't think it was difficult to discover the purpose of the legislation within the Constitution, but somewhere along the line, this thing pop up, and I'm happy that we're able to solve it. I'm happy that it did not occupy too much of our time trying to to find another interpretation, and that's why I think the framers of the amendment in the federal house act speedily, and I think such initiation probably came from the island administration, because when it was sounded back then that the High Court judge had made that findings, it really create some ripples, and I think it was a good thing that the Premier Batley immediately reached out to the Attorney General and other parties in Syncits to zero in on this thing and solve the problem, because as I said, there are some who and it's so difficult to say this, because even such things that would have harmed us so much, some were willing to run off with it as a political whip, you know, and it worries me, because I mean things can change anytime, and you know, as it would affect this particular island administration, it would affect any particular administration. And it worries me to think that, you know, that sometimes, just for political experience, we will support something that is detrimental to the island of Nevis.
But you know, I probably have a different way to put that same thing. And what I find is interesting is the way and the fact sometimes that you don't normally get an opinion on these things from a lot of our leaders. So sometimes you may vote for somebody, get them into a particular office. You don't know what their stance is on a particular thing until they get there. And then when they get there, you're surprised with the view. So what you find, let's say now, it'll be interesting to know where all of the lawmakers stand on this issue, and all of the people who are, you know, there as leaders in the political arena. These are important, you know, issues that make big differences.
Yes, I suppose, because the people we entrust, we put our trust in to do good for the island and for the people of the islands. It would have been very interesting to know, because that's what we talk about when we speak about true colors, you know, and that's what I suppose the public wants to see when we decide to elect, or when we are confronted by individuals who say they seek a position to represent the people, you know, the true colors. But I think, Webbo, over here, from a Nevis point of view, we find ourselves frequently as if we're hiding a card. It's like a group of people playing cards, and it looks like somebody over here always hiding a card. And that's left us with a feeling of eeriness, unsure as to particular issues as it relates to Nevis and the progress of Nevis. It's like that, of course, because we have the sister island and almost like what we consider to be the federal government. And I think there are times relationship is very important between the party over here, or the parties over here, and the federal government, the federal players. And because of that, I think the public in Nevis are sometimes not treated to the fullness thereof in terms of the extent and the variant circumstances and what one may feel about a particular circumstance, as you say, Webbo, until they're there. And sometimes when they time to reveal their true colors, we are absolutely surprised, and at times we can't do much about it until a long time, I suppose 5 years, you know, another election. But I think the people in Nevis sometimes are not privy to intentions from of the various political parties here on island, especially as it relates to relationship and other factors which play a major role in elections. And I think it's unfortunate for the people. I think it's unfortunate for the people because we've been what could I say, hurt by a kind of history where people who we expect is going to be for us find themselves in another place and against us. So I think that clarity that was made on Thursday, it's as simple as it is. It's very far-reaching, and I hope we won't go back there because for somebody like me, I don't know what would become of Nevis if the island administration can't be sued or cannot be sued, or can sue or cannot be sued. It's a victory for the island administration, and I suppose a victory for the people of Nevis.
The other thing I want to go on to,
Yes,
Naya, is I, heard a news item today in reference to the drought and the saving of water and leaks and stuff like that, right? And what I find is interesting in that is that the authorities and the department are asking persons to conserve water. We get certain pointers of how to do that. For instance, if you see leaks, you call the department, you report it, and so on and so forth. And I find that to be interesting on the basis that if you've been around for a while, you will hear this almost all the time. There are certain places, I think when I was here the last time, or recently anyway, I had made a point in general, and I find sometimes it seems that the only persons who are not aware of certain things that are supposed to be done are the persons who are supposed to do it. So I see sometimes certain areas that may have leaks, and you may call the particular department or maybe a light out or something, and you keep wondering, or you might see it for a day, weeks, months, and you keep wondering if everybody else is see it and Naya is responsible for it, how come Naya doesn't see it? I'm just saying that we want to just don't do talk because it sounds good, right? But I learn of the frustration as well, because sometimes people will call here and ask us to say on the radio, oh, there is a water pipe leaking. I'll say, well, how long has it been leaking? Well, maybe a week, 2 days, whatever. I said, but did you try and call the water department or whatever? Well, yes, but nobody come up to now. So I'm just saying to those departments and so on, the folks are willing to work with you. But when you make this appeal and they respond, one of the reasons why you got to keep saying it and asking is because they feel that they're doing thought I get no results because you're not responding, then you're just talking. So I want to just basically say, maybe I want to encourage folks, because water is a prized commodity, and early in the year, sometimes when rain is falling, who thinks about the sun may shine? And I heard a report out of some experts in Barbados suggesting that later this year the Caribbean will be in a drought situation. But at the beginning of the year, we were getting a lot of rain. And now, some of the islands are already struggling. So I just want to underscore and, encourage folks to do the conservation, work with the water department or whatever department it is in reference to utilities. But also, on the other hand, to ask the folks there at the department to work along with the folks as well. And to me, if we do that, the whole thing may work, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, the threat is real, and the threat, I suppose, and the reality is going to affect everyone. Water is life, and I was told quite a while back, Webbo, that the next world war is going to be over fresh water, and I keep hearing things in the international news about access to fresh water. The whole African country, the whole River Nile, those on the banks of the Nile, there's war with Ethiopia because they've built this huge dam that's going to affect Egypt way downstream. I think quite recently the Taliban got involved with some Iran soldiers on the border, and there was a shootout, and it was all about access to the fresh water. Here in Nevis and the Caribbean, we are, and the world probably, but we are entering a quite a period where we cannot anticipate much when it comes to the weather. Because I've been saying to people, look, don't be surprised. It's not what I want, but don't be surprised if this lack of rain extend to maybe way down September, October, and probably to the end of the year. Because
let me get this now. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. You made a very good point. It would be remiss of me if I didn't call in and hear this. Over the past 20 years, because of where my work takes me, I would see, especially in the Indian Castle area, I used to do work for the racetrack, and I would see water running in the spinning roads and stuff like that. And I armed myself with two numbers. Two of the guys that work for the water department, Skipper, and there's another one, Elmo. And I've got to say, I had very good experience with those guys. Once I call them and I tell them, it's a matter of time they show up. And I've seen water leaks all over Nevis. And I just got to call them two guys. And they will communicate with whoever is responsible for the area. And I've seen water in Stony Grove running in the streets. All over. No matter where I see them, I got the numbers in my phone. I just have to put in water, and that number, those two numbers will come up. And that's how I deal with it. I've had very good experience with those two guys. Thank you.
Yeah, caller, might I just add to your point? I use that strategy as well. There's a fella called, well, I don't think he's there now, but even after he wasn't there, they call him Tintin, the love doctor. You know him?
Yeah, that's a schoolmate of mine.
Okay, so I kept his number. I have it in my phone right now under the love doctor, Yeah. Anyway, so I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people call me here, I wouldn't put it on the air. I'll go off air and then I will call him.
Yeah.
And I will tell him, even if he's not at work, he will get in touch with somebody and get it done.
Sometimes it's a big lead. Sometimes I remember one time I was traversing across by Peter Williams, by Stuart Williams' property, and I saw water spraying up. It was a 2-inch. When I checked it, it was a 2-inch light. And after I called them guys, I said, "Let me go check and see what it is." It was somebody emptying the swimming pool. Because I had already called him, so I called him and I told him, it looked like somebody emptying the swimming pool there. So it was not that, but there was a lot of water, so I jumped on the phone and I called.
Right, well that is good. And sure.
If everybody take that, we work together, we get ahead.
Right. Yeah.
Get ahead.
Okay.
The other thing is, Webbo, I hear some people complaining about no water. I mean, there are properties in Nevis who are on the system. They got the government name and they're not even connected. The government name is maybe a little backup or something, but when they build with a system. And that is good water. That is good water. And I know several properties because I do a lot of plumbing on the island. And I see properties there are some properties that are situated above the line, the pressure line, and they have to. Wetlands, Scarcity is a little better now. They have water pressure now because they're built in the reservoir. But wetlands they still have to depend on their own system, and that's how they survive. People have got to take some responsibility for themselves. Don't leave it up to the government alone. You know?
Right, but you see, in that particular point also, don't you think an all-around approach is good as well? Because I remember Mr. Brand, the Minister for Communication and stuff like that, right? I remember maybe about a year ago we had a similar discussion here, and I suggested that, one of the ways to help with the water system is to perhaps legislate the new buildings to have a cistern. And he said, that was in the works already. Well, but you see the point that you just made is that people do a lot of talk, but sometimes we have to zone in on where and how it will make a difference. So as your point that you just made is to do the work now to encourage and ascertain and sort of make sure that people who have their systems get them hooked up, see what it needs, encourage it, and stuff like that.
Yep. Well, I listened to a program a couple of weekends ago, and I could hear some people commenting and carrying on about the water shortage. And they went to the extent of saying that housing and land they're building houses and they're building this and that, and they have no systems to them. And I said, my God, Malcolmville Prospect, they didn't put in any system. Somebody else come along and they build Cherry Garden, they still didn't put in any system. I mean, so where does one get off saying?
Yeah, but I don't know if that is true, Sometimes when you hear people talking, right, it's like I saw a judgment that a judge wrote. And the judge is like, this fella took the person to court for defamation of character.
Yeah.
And he said something about somebody and then made a conclusion, and the judge told him in the judgment, and he dealt with him harshly. He said, you can't make up things on people and then take that thing that you make up and then make a conclusion from it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to be careful, because maybe some of the houses in some of these areas don't have cisterns, but by and large, a lot of them have cisterns. So for a person to say, they build this and there are no cisterns on the houses, the premise might be not true.
No, but I think the housing and land under both administrations over the last how many years have not made the cisterns a part of their building.
I don't know if that's true, so let's just say
you know
why I say that is because I know for a fact that there are houses in some of these developments that have cisterns.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't, you see, when sometimes people want to say things because they want to make somebody look bad.
Yeah.
They have some sort of agenda.
Well, the stronger point though is that people should really pay attention and try and get a system, however small or however big, because in the long run it's going to make their lives a lot easier. Instead of complaining, you simply turn on your system and you move.
That's the larger point,
Yes.
caller, not just for water,
Yes.
but for things in life. Because I keep asking for almost all the years we've been on this show. As I listen, I say, you sure we're not the people who just like to complain? I want to know what will benefit you.
That sometimes happens.
To decide, maybe you can organize a little system of water catchment. But it seems as if it benefits you better to don't have any, so that when no water is here, it just costs.
And then complain.
Yeah, anyway. Thank you. Naya.
No problem. Take care.
Well, we know the water situation, Webbo, from many years ago. I think we used to have big water problems. I can recall when I grew up there on Pump Road, people used to come from all Church Ground and Brown Hill to fetch water. To me, with that type of thing, we should have been alerted a long time ago that, and we have been, because, you know, homes used to be built with cisterns in a big way. And of course, governments and, you know, consequent government, they did make major improvements. Because the truth about it, 6 weeks, 8, 10 weeks ago, everything was fine. Well, sounded fine, you know, and we probably didn't have reason to have this discussion. I think once upon a time, the Honorable Brand did point to the fact that it is important that new homes incorporate a cistern in their structure, and it's absolutely beneficial to the individual. It's absolutely beneficial to the island, because, as I say, in the past there was water problems. I can't say that there are water problems as such here on island. Things can be better. More conservative method and ideas maybe need to be employed at times. And of course, we know that we are a developing little island, and we are out there seeking for investors, so forth, to come in and further develop the island. And I think it's only obvious that water, and I think it's something that the government has been working on, that there is sufficient water to not just service the people of Nevis and the hotel, but in anticipation of any new development. I believe the government of the day has been mindful of that. We should encourage people, yes, to build cistern, make a cistern a part of their structure. We cannot just say, well, government housing projects should have. I think there are more houses being built than what government is building. So maybe a legislation or something to that extent coming through the building board.
Yeah, but I said Naya, and I perhaps subject to correction. I made that point, and subject to correction, Mr. Brand told me that was
a part of it.
In that was really in the system. So
Okay.
for us to just keep saying they should do that, unless Mr. Brand corrects me, I'm pretty sure that he said, well, they have that done already.
Okay, but that is good. That is good. I have not been looking into that deeply, but or even assistance somewhere in there, because I personally sometimes don't feel, you know, I probably don't like assistance in the house, you know. I'm
very sorry. Let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening, Webbo, and good evening to Naya and your listeners. Mr. Spencer Brand here. Webbo,
thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am listening to the program. My apologies for not being able to be present here tonight, but the topic of water has been making the rounds for the last few days.
Webbo, you are absolutely correct. Because sometime last year, when I would have indicated to you that it was my intention to, based on our legislation and regulation, that we would ensure that all residential dwelling on the island of Nevis were constructed with one, either a cistern or some other storage capacity facility. We have had certain requests from, in particular, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, on the basis that because they are in the process of trying to provide affordable homes for the people of Nevis, that there could be some consideration for those residences. We are in discussion with Nevis Housing and Land on this particular matter, because I am still of the view, and we are still of the view, that at least there needs to be some water storage facility on all residences on the island of Nevis. This is not necessarily about the unavailability of water. This goes way beyond the unavailability of water. We are living in a hurricane zone. We are living in an area where there could be certain natural disasters. Our entire water system is all mechanical. And if by some reason this system goes down, it is the hope that our people will still be in a position to be sustainable for at least 2 or 3 days while the system becomes back online. So the legislation is there, the regulation is there. The planning department has been seeking to implement that part of the legislation on an ongoing basis, and we have said too. I think they.
Mr. Brand, just basically for clarification, when you say the legislation is there, and then you go on and say the planning department is something, when you say it's there, what do you mean? With an intent? Or
we would have gone into Parliament, we would have laid the regulations in Parliament, and in those regulations, and it's not just about water storage, it's about a wide array of various issues that relates to the construction sector. In those regulations, the provisions was made for all dwellings to have cisterns or other water storage facilities. So that is there.
So that, okay, so that is a law then?
It is the law.
Okay, and that came into being when?
Sometime last year. I don't remember the exact date. It was done last year.
Okay, sometime last year. Okay, so we had an uncertainty a little earlier. So if you know, the housing developments that have been done, the caller had suggested that there was some talk that the government, successive governments have done developments and have no cisterns, etc. and so. Do you know that to be true?
Some of those dwellings do have cisterns, because the homeowner would have taken it upon themselves and have cisterns added to their dwelling. It's a little extra cost, but some person would have added cisterns.
Okay, so some of the houses do have cisterns?
Yes.
In the various developments?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
No, before you go, Mr. Brand,
yes.
And you see, that's the other thing, that point that I wanted to make earlier, that also I find that when it comes to the water, electricity, or whatever else, the people who perhaps govern those particular areas, sometimes you hear them maybe, so when something goes wrong, making an appeal to so-and-so. But I don't know if they take enough time out sometimes to make their case and encourage people. For instance, now I was making the point that every dwelling, etc., should have a cistern, or you have reinforced it and it says some sort of storage for water. And you went on a little further and said not only because of the water system, But what if there's an emergency or hurricane or something?
Exactly.
And you have basically a backup.
Exactly.
But the point is, you have to understand communication and effective communication. You don't just say something once and then say, oh, well, me done tell people already. It doesn't work like that.
I take your point, Webbo, and I certainly do agree, as yourself, who is an expert in communication. But Webbo, I believe that we on the island of Nevis has become perhaps maybe a victim of our own success. We have seen over the years significant development in our water infrastructure. We have expanded numerous water storage tanks throughout the island of Nevis. We have increased our networking and our delivery system. We have started to ensure that on the island of Nevis we are able to move water from Gingerland all the way over to Newcastle, all around the island, because of the built-in redundancy and the built-in networking of the system. We have done all of that. We have, in my mind, Webbo, where we are in 2023, the reports that I have seen are saying that we are years ahead in terms of the demand for water on the island of Nevis. It shows, Webbo, that while we seek to provide a dependable and reliable source of water, because of the development on the island of Nevis, the demand on the system is almost outpacing the supply. And I want to say to the people of Nevis, it's not because of the want of trying. We have signed, this government, in 2017, August as a matter of fact, would have signed an agreement with BEAD to try and ensure that we meet the demands of the island of Nevis. The intention was to have BEAD provide an additional 3-4 wells to the island of Nevis that would have ensured that we would keep abreast and apace. That contract was never fulfilled. We are now in the process of trying to ensure that either the people of Nevis get back their money and we would have deposited to BEAD a mobilization amount of over $2 million. So it is not that we are not in the process of trying. We have looked at this al. The problem that we are having with this al, Webbo, is of course the energy cost. I am hoping that with the advent of our geothermal project, that the energy cost will definitely come down, and then we can definitely give a serious look again at the desal process. All of those are options. But for now, we are intent to ensure that we can at least encourage our people that in the long term they can have their own backup by providing the necessary. Because I think the issue or the topic was on the matter of systems. I want to encourage our people to seriously think and give consideration for the construction of systems. Or, if they are not in a position to construct a system during the construction phase, that they can purchase some tank storage facility. And it's just to provide water for their own need for at least 2 or 3 days. And I think that would eliminate a lot of the anxiety that many persons are feeling.
Okay.
All right,
thank you. Thanks for calling. Now,
well, the Honourable Minister said that the works and so forth that have taken place have put Nevis in a position that, one can say that we are way ahead. But I think the reality is there are problems to be solved, Webbo. I would join with the Minister to encourage that people to definitely take care of their own water situation as much as they can, because it seems like water also is a political issue around here, and as a result of that, the people can probably be left exposed to bad situation. The fact that we are living in a time where we can anticipate what the weather would be like going forward because of global change in the whole weather situation. I think it's incumbent upon the people to take that step. For safety and security going forward, because we can listen to the minister, and at the same time they are trying, as he said, but in real terms, when we turn on our pipe, we would like to see water, and the minister make mention, put in a cistern or some kind of facility just to probably 3 or 4 days. It can be 5 days, but it can also be 6 months. It can also be 6 months. I think we are taking this a little too close to the edge here. People needs to be assured, and the self-assurance can sometimes only come from you doing it yourself as much as you can. The government would play its role, but the government also have to employ companies that sometimes things become problematic. And listening to the Honorable Minister, I foresee that there was, or there gonna be, or there's some kind of thing going on with BEAD and the government and so forth. As a result of this, I would encourage people to go and try to help their own situation. And when the government do what they have to do, it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win situation. We cannot anticipate the weather these days. We cannot anticipate the weather. And even government might be surprised of what turned out as it relates to rain, the wet weather. We are all at loss at this point in time. We cannot anticipate it. So going forward, we might have a better situation. We have adverse situation, and yes, partly we can point at the government, but not in an entire and absolute way at times, because we are dealing with unpredictable situation as it relates to the weather. And I think that is what have happened, because 2 months ago we wasn't having this conversation. Rain was coming and everything was fine going forward, and we don't know when we would have that amount of shower that can turn the whole situation around. I think
in with regards to that same water, as we were talking, and the first caller had mentioned, what he does when he sees a leak someplace and stuff like that. Sometimes, to tell the truth, I know people are wary of calling some of the utilities, because sometimes you get a backlash.
Yeah.
But in life, sometimes there's always that. So I'm just going to mention here that on Westbury Road, let's see, it has a swale in the road, and just before you turn across, what across the name, Naya? When you leave you turn in onto Westbury Road, going up.
yes.
And then the first swale that you meet, you can turn right. There's a village across there. You know what I'm speaking about? Or you don't know Nevis that well?
Yeah. I know Nevis. In the areas of the chicken farm, where there used to be a chicken farm.
Man, I thought you say you know Nevis real well. You know where Westbury is? You turn on the Westbury Road, Cades Bay.
Yeah, Cades
When you
Bay, yes.
get off the main road,
Yes.
and you turn off on the left if you're coming from Charlestown, you turn on the right.
If you're coming from Charles.
Yeah, just before you get to the Seabridge area.
Yes, sir.
So you turn right,
Okay.
and you go up there. And there's a restaurant called Jujobs.
Jujobs, yes.
Okay. So right there's a gut.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And you turn on the right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So before you go, you turn right. So as you come out of the swale,
Yes.
always, 90% of the time,
Water.
there's a leak right there. And I keep wondering if nobody sees it but me. I've called sometimes. I think it was fixed for a couple of months at one point, and of late, same thing again. So guys, the water department, as you're making your rounds, maybe later, that we're losing water right there too, so maybe you can check that out. And so the general public, that's one way of helping, because I don't know how much effort, how much results we're going to get from just cussing. So do what you can do, and call the water department, as I say, and help them a lot. But folks at the water department, you gotta help yourself too, because it's your work as well, as they would say.
Yeah.
But if we work with one another, we'll get a thing done. Because I don't know why do you think we like to cuss so much now? Don't answer. I gotta get a break. This is Thought That Get Results. Conrad Naya Library. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We'll be back after this.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
On this episode of Thought That Get Results. Now, what else you got? But before you do that, though, I was hoping to see Edric this evening. So Edric, I hope everything is okay. Came in with a message for Edric, so I'll still give him, hoping of course that he is in, right? So Edric, I have this cousin, and he lives in England. He seems to be one of Edric's fans. I don't know on which side of the coin, but he says that he stays up when he's to listen to the program. He has to stay up because when the program comes on live, it's 1 o'clock for him, one in the evening, 1 a.m., right? Or 1 in the morning, whatever you want, whatever it is. So it's 1 o'clock, so he has to stay up late. And if you staying up late to listen to somebody, you got to be the real fan, right?
Yes.
But what I found was interesting, he also told me to tell Edric that sometimes he disconnects him.
Yes.
So, but he should have known that, Edric, when I started, because I said it was my cousin, and they say he also looked like me. So Edric, he's one of your fans. He listens to you, but sometimes, just like you do to me, he says sometimes he's disconnected. So I just wondered. I'm sorry you're not in to respond, but maybe when you get in the next time, you will. Okay, Naya, what else you got?
You tell me, Webbo.
So you don't have any other issues you want to put on the table?
just to go back to the house and to reflect on the other legislation that makes St. Kitts Nevis. They're using a term which I forget at this point in time, that basically, designates certain areas for people who wants to smoke the new, not the new, cannabis, as St. Kitts Nevis seems to market themselves as a cannabis-friendly country. And it was the concern of many people, especially those who wanted to go to the music festival, about their comfort or discomfort as it relates to people who intend to smoke herbs and so forth. I think the legislation was well put forward, and I think it just brings things to that level of that international expectations, where we occupy not just we share the space basically, and so there are those who would be affected negatively by the smoke of cannabis or whatever, and so a new smoking zone has been designated. And I think within the bill, I think they also make mention of new buildings or public buildings, providing such space. And I think the legislation did clear up a lot of people's concern, and I think there was something in there that was, I would think, good for the Rastafarians, I suppose, and their place of worship being registered, and some privileges that are there for them to enjoy once they follow the right route. I think it's bringing things up to speed in balance with what we know, like the established churches and the privilege they enjoy. I think they try to basically spread this right across the board, where Rastafarians and the place of worship, once it's recognized and registered, they enjoy such privilege as well. I think it's what we call equal rights and justice in that regard. I compliment the Prime Minister to take these steps that kind of level the play field.
Let me
I just saw the phone message from England just now as I pick up my phone.
So you got your radio on real loud or something? Okay. No, the fault. No, walk with me. I'm blaming you, but the mess up his mind. Sorry for all that. Good evening. Hello.
Hello, Webbo?
Yes.
I just saw the information where Egon called me. Just as I passed
okay. Hello. Walk with me. So you're not making it tonight? Are you still coming?
Well, I could come.
Okay. So, why don't you just stay on the phone and make what points you want to make? But were you listening?
Yes, I listened and based on what you said.
Okay, walk with me. So you heard what I said in terms of the great fan you have, who is my cousin?
Not all of it.
Okay, so here it is. I have a cousin who lives in England, right? And he is seemingly one of your fans, greatest fans, maybe, I don't know, but he's one of your fans, because he told me that he stays up most times to listen to the program and he likes to hear you. When he stays up, listen to the program live, it is 1 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes, he says, you're disconnecting. And I, in a light moment said, well, you should have known that, because he's my cousin, number one, and number two, they say he looks like me. So I told him I'd let you know. And I'm sure you would have a response to that. So you say what?
Well, if he doesn't listen attentively, he will get disconnected. As many times you said, you disconnect me, Edric.
Right.
And I would tell you, continue to listen, Webbo. And if you continue to listen, you will not get disconnected. So that is my response to the ardent listener to our program. Who's living in England and who is your cousin? Please tell him again, he has to continue to listen. And if he doesn't continue to listen and listen attentively, he will always get disconnected.
Okay, he got you. Well, you're still normally at your desk because he's here right now. So if I got some time, I'll like him to engage you, but I'll tell him that he'll have to have time.
Well, if he can find the time, then I will make myself available.
Okay, all right. So that's said. Anything else you would like to add for tonight? Now, before I let you add what you want to add, Naya was just making a point, and I wanted to engage Naya because this point about this marijuana, or what do you call it, Naya?
Cannabis.
And this designated smoking and all that. Now, I'm hearing the other side of the debate because it seems to me a gentleman was here a couple of weeks ago, and he was from the mental unit, and he was suggesting that there is talk and debate, and I said I'm not so sure if there is debate and not there is talk. But I hear people debating in the community and on the streets. And I don't know if in a debate we try to bring out the good and the ills and so on and see if we can meet in the middle. But the ills that some of this thing are causing by people using the stuff indiscriminately. I know some people are going to ask you, but we said A, B, C. But we also have to, be mindful because I just heard you, Naya, mention about the music festival and they're going to be able to smoke in particular areas. I understand from a reliable source, I was not at the funeral myself, but there was a funeral on Nevis recently. And there were a number of young folks who were there at the funeral who seemingly had a designated area in the churchyard where they were doing that and everybody's just grumbling. And these are some of the things that I think that while we are watching and talking about the amount of money we can make from these things, what does it profit a man if he gains all this money and we lose the kids in the society? So Edric, go ahead.
Well, the topic I want to put on the table is I do not understand how these water accidents, meaning boats running into people, or people are so careless that they themselves don't look out for the oncoming boats. And I don't understand if these people are deaf, those people were in the water. It takes two to tango. And in this regard, the sea captain who runs this boat and runs into a swimmer, he somewhat lost his vision in terms of the marine industry. And also, the swimmer who is in the water, he has to look out and hear these boats coming and to move out of their way. So we would not have these accidents continue to occur. We have had 2 boat accidents in Nevis already. And in my view, the responsibility falls on both parties. The swimmer, or the person who is in the water, and also the captain of whichever boat it is that causes these accidents. For now, Webbo, you have a good evening.
Thank you.
As it relates to these accidents, think we're going through a period of development which we probably got to be more thinking or thoughtful, I must say, of consequences. Because yes, of course, all of a sudden the whole place is being filled with fast boats, speed boats, boats that have around 3-4 engines behind. And of course there is there's a limit as to how close in these speedboat can travel. There's also a limit as to how far out these swimmers can go. I think these places are well marked in the area of Pinnies and Four Seasons. And sometimes if there is no marking, people can, of course, anticipate and keep themselves within the safe zone, meaning not going beyond that point where a speedboat will, or if a speedboat is passing, it would connect them. I think the development on the beaches and the importance of the beaches, the whole tourist industry, beg us to be more mindful of these circumstances. Before, we used to go to the beach and we swim all the way out to anchoring ground. You can't do that these days because they are both with carrying speedboats, 3 and 4 engine behind, and believe me, the minute you see them, they're right up on you. An individual in the water just cannot maneuver him or herself as fast as if he or she was on land. And when you see a speedboat coming to you, as soon as you wink, it's right up on you. And so maybe better markation must be made, or these things must be constantly repeated, you know, in social comments, in the safety books of the island, especially because down on Pinnies Beach, just about 5 years ago, I see them tend to build a watchtower, and I thought that was a good idea because, you know, people come to swim, people go in the water, their speedboat, jet ski passing by, you know, and to me it was something to bring about more safety for people in general, being on the beach, having fun on the beach. But it was never completed for whatever reason. But we are entering that area of development whereby we must be more mindful of people accessing the beach, and at the same time the guys with the speedboat having fun with the speedboat and jet ski. Accidents will happen, but we got to try to avoid them in every way, you know. I hope such thing doesn't take place again. So I can only encourage those who enjoy swimming, and there are a group who also like to go fishing, diving for fish and so forth. Be mindful when you're in that area where the boat pass. Well, do not be in the area where the boat pass, because as I say, if you're down under, you may not see the boat, and the captain of the boat may not see you, and these boats are traveling at great speed, so one should try to protect themselves. And I think whatever the government can do to make this a public understanding, they can do that, even to put more floating balls, signs on the beach, because even though you have these demarcation in the water, I still don't see no written sign, and that helps, of course. And take every step that is necessary to prevent these accidents, because it does not reflect on us as an island, as a country who are trying to promote this tourism thing, that these things happen. I can't blame the boat, and I can't blame the individual. I would blame no one at all. I suppose that we just need to, all of us, you know, government and the people, to lift up ourselves to that level whereby we are really endangering people's life and our lives by breaching these standards, going beyond those zones that are clearly earmarked. And it will do good if a written sign is being placed somewhere or various places along the beach.
And now, before Edric came in with that point, and I was making the point about these cannabis and the negative fallouts from them. I don't know whether or not we are highlighting those enough and paying enough attention to it, because the other thing I find is interesting, the suggested areas or smoking zones, so to speak. I wonder if they don't have the negative effects, because you remember not so long ago, for cigarettes, you had smoking and no smoking areas, and for cigarettes, it almost as if there's no smoking area at all for most places.
Yes. Because there's obviously the international campaign to slow down, the smoking of cigarettes. In places like France, where a lot of people smoke, it's a little different. The pressure there is not that much.
So my thing, though, Naya, is with that experience, armed with that experience from the cigarettes, and then over time finding out the damage that it does to the society, and now trying to pull back. My question is, are there not, maybe not the same magnitude, but similar negative effects from this gold rush that some segment of the society may say, but hold it, wait. Before you designate all of these things or give all this permission and so on, what is it worth it to get all of this stuff at the risk of losing these things? That's the debate I really would like to hear.
It's a global debate, because in the last 10 years there are a lot of countries that have attempted to, in some way or the other, legalize marijuana. Because of its, according to the scientists, the numerous benefits, health benefits you can get at times, but they are prepared to take that risk, even though they do not know what would happen socially. And it is a concern globally, not just here in the Federation, because there are benefits, medical benefits, and all the benefits that to be gained from the cultivation and the usage of marijuana or cannabis. But what they cannot accurately anticipate is the social risk.
Right.
Is the social risk.
Right.
And basically the whole consequence of that. But they are willing to do it. You know why?
Right. But the money is right. and thus, that is why in the debate I put the question, what does it profit us in the end to rake in so much of that gold and lose? Because a soul is a terrible thing to lose.
A soul is a terrible thing to lose, Webbo, and you know what I think? They have hyped this thing so much because of money.
Yeah.
Because of money, and I think what is natural about it has gone out the window.
Right.
And I personally feel like, of course, governments still want to have a hand in it because of the money. And I believe if it's just let be, it would iron out itself in a way that people are not so excited about it. Because what is it? It's a plant. It's a plant. And I think what had happened in the past, they're making it illegal. And therefore the whole monetary and the criminalization have taken place surrounding the herbs, and now government wants to free it up, but they still want a hand in it because of the money reward.
Right, and so the money reward is one thing, freeing it up is another, but the prescription of it because you know, even when we talk about home remedies and the bush and all these things, the problem we have is the dosage.
Yes.
And so the plant is good. It has a lot of benefits in it. But does a fellow on the street who just pick up some or who plant some, is he aware of the dosage, for instance, that you must use in order to get a particular benefit? The indiscriminate use, is that being monitored? Or will it be monitored? You
No.
see what I'm saying?
No.
So isn't that a place where the danger can come from?
Well, yes, Webbo, because as we know, it's not any and everybody can use herb. Let's just say smoke herb. There are other ways you can, use herb. Scientifically, I think that's where they're at right now, dealing with dosage and so forth. The question is, when that kind of science would reach these shores, and when these kind of science would be adhered to, really.
But that statement that you just made is not any and everybody can. Well,
can smoke herb,
right?
And
But why? Why you make the point that it's not any and everybody can do it?
Because that's the reality. It's just anybody can do anything.
Meaning what it might do to me, it may not do to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it might be detrimental to me, but it might be cool for you.
Well, I wouldn't use the word detrimental.
Okay. What word would you use?
It might be not enjoying to you, and
but
I may enjoy it.
Right.
I am not sure about.
But in terms of harm. No, because
but yes, it can be harmful to you and not harmful for me, because again,
walk with me. However, when they make the legislation, they make it available to me and you, nonetheless.
Yes, and that's why I say there's that social risk that no one seems to be able to encircle with legislation. So it's.
So you understand now why I say what I hear is talk, not a debate.
Oh yes, they haven't really had any serious debate, really. On the marijuana thing, as far as I check, they are listening to, and at times, because just the other day, the leaders of the federation were saying, "Not over my dead body," and all of a sudden, things have changed. So, without proper debates, things have changed, and I suppose that they are following other places who probably been growing herbs on a commercial basis for much longer time.
But here's the thing: the time that I hear us putting this thing in place, and the urgency that seemingly was put to it, I thought we would have already been reaping some heavy cash, don't you think? Because we've been talking a while about this thing. I remember when Dr. Douglas was Prime Minister. Remember the commotion about this, people who came in, and etc. And so that was quite a while ago. That.
Yeah. Well, I personally feel like a lot of the hype is just hype.
In fact, I was discussing it with someone today, and I said to them that this reminds me of the 2007 World Cup when it was coming to St. Kitts, the Federation, and they had such a hype on that. Those marketing people were great. Let me take this. I'll get back to that. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. Webbo.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a little problem. I'd like to call in. I want to know why farmers got to be paying $25 and the farmer bill and the farm and the garbage, they pick up the garbage from after farm. I been to Brother, I talked to Brother about it, I go to agriculture about it, and up to now I don't get no assistance.
Okay. So you went to Brand, Mr. Brand,
I spoke to Brand several times.
and what did he tell you?
He said, oh, they're supposed to work on it, they work on it, and nobody, I get in the results, and every month I got to pay $25 for the pipe on my farm.
And they don't. So do you have garbage on the farm?
Hello?
Do you have garbage on the farm?
No, they pick up the garbage on my farm.
Walk with me. But do you have garbage?
No, man, gonna garbage on my farm.
But how are they gonna walk with me? How are they gonna pick it up? You see what I'm saying?
Because no $25 was to be on the farm.
Okay. So who else you talk to about it?
I talked to agriculture. They said they talked to them because it's wrong. And it looks like nobody seems like they want to deal with this thing, and it's wrong.
So why do they charge you $25 then?
Hello?
Why do they charge you $25? Because you have a water meter?
They have meter.
Uh-huh.
They come and they ask me for the meter, the number, everything. They take picture, everything. Agriculture. They said they're studying, they deal with them. Up to now, nothing do.
Okay. All right. Well, I got you. Mr. Brand is listening, and we're going to put the question to him. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Naya, that's an interesting one, right? Because they're picking up $25 from him. They're not picking up his garbage, but to be fair, he doesn't have any garbage, so I don't know how they can pick it up. But I get his point. The garbage truck probably don't go anyway, and he has to pay $25. The problem, I think, with that is how it is explained. Because solid waste, water department collects the money, right? And hands it to who? Solid waste? The $25, I think, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Mr. Brand and who's Mr. Brand is disaster as well, too, right? I mean, solid waste too.
No.
Anyway,
No.
who it is?
Health. Solid waste is it the premier?
No, solid waste in the premier. Anyway, the persons who are concerned, and that's the thing about it, they know the responsibility. The gentleman is a concern or a question, and as a citizen and a taxpayer, I think you all should address it.
He's been complaining to me a lot, Webbo.
Oh, really? So you know about it too. So you're a one who will not bother in studying him?
Webbo, I'm so happy that he called in because I've been encouraging him to do that all the time. He has a complaint. He said that he got to pay $25 for garbage, and nobody come collect no garbage at his farm. Well, he just made the point that there is no garbage there. But I think he has, there's something in what he's saying needs to be addressed. But I don't know, farmers supposed to pay more or less water bill? More on their water bill or less on their water bill?
Well, I don't know. I think the issue is that they're collecting a fee for solid waste, right? And they said, remember Nevlek used to collect that fee?
Yes.
And they said that the water department has a better system for collection. I don't know. So that's why they transferred it to the water department. So once you have a meter,
you'll have to pay.
You have to pay that $25, and if you have 2 meters, you pay $50, $25 each. So I think maybe what has to be explained to him is the purpose and the structure, how they set it up, and whether really the $25 is actually for picking up garbage. Well, it's a technical thing. He says he doesn't have no garbage, but I guess his point is, since you're charging $25, you must come still, even if there's no garbage. So you all please pay attention to it, and call her if they don't pay no attention to you. Call me back next week. We will answer until they do something about it and give you some satisfaction. I don't like when people, don't, think that people think is a waste of time. I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? And I always tell people, anytime somebody who works in government, you carry an issue, and anytime you hear them say, I will look into it, that's what you call an international bluff. It's better to tell you something. So from the time somebody tell me, I'll look into it, I say, I got you. You're not going to hear from them again. So you all please help this gentleman. You charging him $25 for water, for garbage. You're not picking up any garbage, although he doesn't have any. So sort that out. Yes, Naya. So where were we? I think we were on the cannabis thing, and I think the way we are presenting it, maybe the persons will argue that people are getting the wrong impression. But the point is that I think some folks are getting the impression that you get this cannabis business and it's just free for all, everything is freed up and you just do as you feel. Meantime, the society, and I like how you put it, the social cost is extravagant.
They don't know about that up to yet. All of this is a part of the experiment. Because the social consequence is not known. It may not be known in a hurry.
The full extent of it may not be known, but we're seeing it.
There'll be a bit of uncomfortableness going forward in people doing what they think the legislation allows them to do. But Webbo, I'm not one who buy into this great money reaping from the cannabis. Honestly, if you guys are really serious with some agriculture, let us work on this food security thing in a very serious way. Instead of I don't know where they're hoping to sell the ganja to, or where they're hoping to sell the ganja. I don't know if they intend to make the oil here and administer it to the patients here. But I have been at bay as to how this will function as what they refer to as a cannabis industry.
Right. I think I remember I was making the point about the messaging or the marketing.
Yeah.
And I was referring to the World Cup. And they did such a job with this marketing of the World Cup, and especially in the government. And they were encouraging people to go, borrow monies, if you will, build apartments, build houses, and stuff like that. Because I remember one marketing person, with a line. He says, the question is not whether or not you will make monies, because you will. The problem you're going to have is what you're going to do with all this money. And people actually fell for it. And some people ran in problems with the banks after that, because how the dickens were you going to make so much money from a couple of weeks session, and you can only charge so much for a person coming in to stay for a night? But they did a good, what I would call, con job with it. And I'm seeing shades of it with this cannabis business. Yeah. Because I make the point in a debate that there's one thing that they're not talking about in this whole thing and highlighting. That before you get to all this money and how you're going to count it from the cannabis, you got to put in some work. And that is the problem. Because you can become a millionaire, you can get a lot of money from planting carrots too.
Oh yeah.
And bananas. And these are healthy. These are good for your health as well. But the problem why we are not making all this money from these produce is work.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do the work.
Yes. No,
so this same cannabis business, what you expect to get all this heap of money from, you got to also put in the work.
Yes, same thing that affect us in various agriculture attempts going to affect us with this cannabis thing. I really don't know why they hype up the people so much about it. Really, the people should be encouraged to plant food. Webbo, the legislators say, individual can have six cannabis trees. Well, that's okay, but I don't know where we are importing millions of dollars on a monthly basis to feed the people of the Federation with the beautiful soil that Sinkis have and all that, and the land span they have down there. I don't know why they intend to go into this industry where everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody. I mean, where they're gonna sell the products? Are we up to the scientific knowledge and implementation here on Ireland to really make cannabis into the medical, and sell to where? I mean, things got to be improved on an international basis. There's great complication, Webbo, and I think going forward, that realization is going to strike home in a heavy way. But it's one good thing. If you provide an infrastructure where you can grow cannabis and you have all these shade homes and so forth, you can easily turn it into to carrot growing or cabbage growing. So at the end of the day, if that attempts have failed and it doesn't reap what we are thinking about, I suppose a lot of the infrastructure can be used still.
So
I suppose a lot of infrastructure can be used.
That's interesting. So if you get a lot of shade houses and stuff like that for the cannabis and it fail, then you plant cabbage.
You can plant agriculture products, which is is very much in demand.
Well, let me ask you this, Naya. Why you think they don't plant the cabbage now and the other agricultural products now that they can? So you think that they don't do it now, but if they're there and the cannabis fail, then they will do it?
Well, it looks like governments this is something new, and everybody seems to wants to jump on board with something new, and which seems profitable. But I personally, I've been around herbs for a long time, and I just remain quite unsure as to the nature of this cannabis industry in terms of one, market, in terms of two, getting the cannabis to that level where it can be it can be prescribed by competent doctors, apart from those who will smoke. I really does not see it bringing home the goodies for the Federation.
You think it's any different?
And the idea of tourism mixed with it, I just can't see the success, a successful nexus between that. Tourists go to Jamaica, you think it's for ganja? Look how much tourists have come sink it before this ganja thing. No, Webbo, it's a myth. It's a myth.
You how would you look at it in this regard? We used to plant cotton, sugar, used to plant bananas and stuff like that. But some argue that the people who make the real monies out of these crops were the people who, when we back them up and ship them away and stuff like that, because they send them back to us in a different form, and we basically pay. So so what the banana growers get, and the cotton growers and the sugar growers, that's why we moved away from agriculture. One of the reasons, because we were getting nothing at all. So my question is, with the cannabis, will it be different?
I can't see it being much different, and I'm warning a lot of people who is excited about it. Don't be a slave in nobody's field, You understand? Because that is what's happening all over the world. We do the hard work, and then the cannabis go away and come back in a different form, and we gotta buy it.
So
You
what?
got to pay for it.
So why? That's why I'm asking, Naya. Is it going to be any different? Because will it be that we plant it the same way as we planted the cotton, the bananas, etc., and we get minimum wage for basically doing that,
Yeah.
and then we send it to some place that has the factory that separates the different chemicals that are good for A, B, C, D, and E, and then we get it back, and then we go to the drugstore when the doctor prescribes it,
Yeah.
and then we pay. Now, if that is a process or the procedure that it takes, it won't be long, would it, before you begin to say, Naya, man, I'm planting this thing, but ain't making any money, so I don't think I planted it.
You don't know who's making the money, but you're not making no money.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, I'm waiting to see. They always say that they put in Rastafarians or Rastafari front and center of all this. I mean, that's almost like a joke to me. We really shouldn't work for them, but if we got to and we want the experience, we can try. But as far as I check, it's minimum wage. It's minimum wage going forward. It's minimum wage. But what about food security? What about that? That is the question I have to ask all those who feel like, okay, we can turn the whole place into marijuana cultivation. What about food security?
But you think if we were to do as good a marketing job in convincing persons then that if you plant carrots and you plant banana and so on, then you will become rich, you think then persons will be minded to do so?
Yeah, of course, until they realize differently. Until they realize differently, yes. I mean, there's market here, not out there, is here, for all these products that, you know, food products, you know. You decide to start this cannabis industry. As I say, I'm not sure what form it's going to take. You grow cannabis and you want to separate the good part of it, as you put it, from the bad part of it, or whatever. But it cannot be done here because we don't have the level of technology here. And so we basically are just factors of production in terms of doing the farming, and it goes somewhere else. Of course, the people can only have 6 trees in their yard, whereas the government have millions of trees being planted by the same people who only can have 6 trees. And we can only wait to see how this imbalance really unfold, as far as I check, because it's agriculture, it's hard work, just like any agriculture work, and even harder. And there are a lot more specification in terms of quality than, well, I suppose there's specification in terms of quality in any agriculture product, you know, because the hotels them not take it unless it looks a certain way, and you know, I think the governments need to break the back of that particular perception, because I've listened it every day, whereby people say they're planting all this food, but the hotel them not take the food, the hotel them still bring in the container load. So I think efforts in that area might have been more fruitful in the long term for agriculture in St. Kitts Nevis than to talk about getting into cannabis industry, where Antigua, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, everywhere, and nobody's getting nothing to sell. The other day, Canada sent some cannabis to Jamaica, and they almost caused a riot. And until the Jamaica government explained that the arrangement is a two-way arrangement, we supply them and they supply us also. You know, Webbo, it's something to me that it's surrounded by a lot of hype, but I do not really see great economic benefit. On a local level, if we can get cannabis oil to administer to a lot of our patients, because it does work for cancer patients and so forth, and we can understand by the professionals the right dosage and so forth, it will help in a medical, situation like that. But in terms of having St. Nevis ganja on international market, you can't wait long for that.
But Naya, if what you're saying, is true, and argue the fair points, then you don't have to know the dollar social cost to put on the brakes, because you see it on the streets.
Yeah.
And as I had mentioned earlier, the fact that this person told me this is what happened at this particular, and gathering, and that's only one example. Maybe there are others.
No, that
and
okay.
Those things, in my view, are one too many in a society.
Yeah, but also, Webbo, as I say, whereas I can maybe use it and you can't, there can be a medical cost, whereby, as a result of people doing what they're not supposed to do or what they can do, they find themselves in a medical ward.
Right. So these are things to me that in the talk that is happening and not being brought out, because when you as the authoritative voice or person just advance this particular thing, like in the example with the World Cup, when they were telling people to go and borrow money and build apartments and so on, you're going to make so much money, and there wasn't much pushback of anybody saying what that guy is saying is not realistic. So everybody run full into it, and some get hurt. Whereas if when people were making those arguments, you heard the other side of the story, that these things are not feasible, maybe it might have saved some people from going helter-skelter and end up getting hurt.
Yes, Webbo, there are many sides sometimes, and in this particular experiment, because it is an experiment, it's almost like a global experiment, because what are we talking about here, and the uncertainty at times is the same things being discussed in various places, As I say, I lived in England for a while, and there was a kind of cannabis out there called skunk. They call it skunk, and it remained a Class A drug. Whereas the regular cannabis that we know came from Jamaica was reduced to a Class C drug. It's been said and proven that skunk was harmful and deleterious to the mind. And there was people who was suffering and find themselves, suffering from mental circumstances, and so the potent of it too, because a lot of things being done with the herb, Webbo, a lot of things to increase the potent to the fullness, a lot of things. You got to know what you're doing these days. You got to know what you're smoking. You got to know what you're buying. And let me say this, the people here in Nevis and St. Kitts, they all want the herb from California. They all want the seed from California. I see people who have herb tree in the yard, and rain start come, and they run outside and take it up and bring it inside. I said, what happened? He said, it's not supposed to get wet. And it makes me laugh, because we know we want rain and trees, rain come on the trees and the trees grows well, but things have changed so much. They have manipulated the plant so much, Webbo, right, that what we are seeing in these times is a distance away from what is natural. And of course, the more you use it, the more your capacity increase to tolerate it. And so we just think that's okay. I'm surprised that government is diving into this thing without probably crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, based on what they perceive to be big money coming from it. I don't really see any big money coming from the cannabis industry here in the Federation, to be quite honest. I think we have a problem here, And with today's inflation, we're gonna realize it more and more that we need to be more secure as it relates to what we eat. You know, not just availability and hands-on access to, but even the things that they are bringing in for us to eat. Maybe that is causing all the sickness that we are experiencing around here. We can probably do agriculture, you know, in a more pure form without what they call it, more natural agriculture, because the food that they're bringing here in the containers, no one's sure as to their readiness to consume. Maybe it's second-hand things that I just see some oranges in the supermarket. Them that cannot be oranges that is meant to be in the supermarket. No, but we buy them because they come in a container. I am saying, Webbo, personally, that the government will be doing more for the people if we vehemently approach this food security idea and spend the money they intend to spend on this new endeavor, which they call the cannabis industry, to really bring food security to the people of the Federation. Think it's got wonderful soil. Think it can grow food.
Well, the point we have, the problem we have with this thing about growing food, we've been talking about it a lot of years, but again, it's the work. Nobody wants to do the work and that work. Quickly, Naya, we've got a few minutes yet.
Yes, sir.
But I was just looking at a news item here. And I, you know, as we were talking about the social costs of certain things and so on, and it says, well, I didn't hear about it, but it says here, following an altercation which took place at the Charleston Secondary School on the 24th of May, the Ministry of Education released a statement stating its intention to carry out an investigation into the matter. And during his monthly press conference, the Premier gave an update on the progress on the investigation in the disciplinary measures, right? And so on. And that's another thing that you hear a lot of in the schools. And this unruly behavior. And you see, that's the other thing. And when you hear what you call the shoo-shoo, and you investigate who's involved and what might be the stimulant that is involved in these kind of behavior, but it's not coming to the fore. Why? Because there's just talk and no debate. And everybody's probably afraid to highlight these are the things that we have certain problems, because it might look bad on us, right? But these things come to the fore when it boils over.
Oh, there was an altercation.
There seemed to be well, I guess I'll hear it in full tomorrow, but it seems as if there is a clip with the Premier addressing it, or something to that effect, and in it says something about it, some disciplinary measures for the people who were involved. Altercation, maybe, you know.
Yeah, but you know, Webbo, in these gestures, what we're doing sometimes, we're not just the cannabis. We are creating a society that seems to everybody have a right. And your right conflicts with my right, and trouble is abound. You know, we must realize what people consider to be freedom, what people consider to be their right, and how much they are really drifting towards these ideology, sometimes just to create problems. Sometimes just to create problems. There are a lot of stimulus out there, and I wouldn't point to the fact that that individual was under the influence of this or under the influence of that. But to me, we are building a society these days where there is no boundary as it relates to rights and freedom And that can be problematic, especially in institutions like schools and so forth, you know. We got to be very mindful with that, Webbo. Yes, we respect the leverage of freedom, but there must be adherence to rules. There must be adherence, especially rules that has been there a long time. You can't because you feel like you develop some rights, and now in this circumstance they're freeing up cannabis, and so you can be using cannabis anyhow, in anywhere, in any place, and acting in a manner that you are unruly. That is out of place. That cannot point towards creating a better society.
You know, you said unruly, and I was waiting until I, get you paused, because we're making the point that it doesn't have to be some sort of stimulant. But as you say, unruly, indiscipline is a stimulant.
Okay.
Can be put under that, because I want to make the point that when a person is behaving in an unseemly manner, it doesn't have to mean that he smokes something or he drinks something. If the person is indisciplined, disrespect, has no respect for the teachers, has no respect for nobody, and stuff like that. But that is encouraged. And so it is always going to be, you have a structured society, and that is why you have laws and people to enforce laws and so on and so forth. And then you try to operate to those as much as you can. And as a consequence of that, you have a better organized society. And that is why leadership is so important. You see? But, I just find it's interesting. Yeah.
With this social experiment, a lot of these deep consideration, is on the line, Webbo. It's on the line, and I'm not saying it's going to lead to decadence in any way at all, but we are left to realize what's going to happen. We are hoping money is going to be making, but as it relates to the social experiments and consequence, we are left to realize what's going to happen. I do hope that it's positive, and it is not really, causing too much destruction of values in the society and the respect which we have for each other. We must remember that we share this space, and I must respect you and you must respect me. And if it means that I'm doing something that's going to affect you, I shouldn't have no problem moving away from you when I want to do that. We are dealing with a massive social experiment as it relates to the consequence of legalizing cannabis globally, not just here in Nevis.
So that's the last word. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding